alongside me, Mr. Shreyas Singh. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, really excited for this show once again. This has been one of the shows that I've been looking forward to for so long because I always wanted to be on with Jay, and finally, I think being from this Indian side of Manchester United, there have been a lot of people who adore Jay, so it is an absolute dream for me to be on with him.
So I'm saying, not only the godfather of fucking Eccles,
So,
mate.
do you know what? I should have come on this podcast years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is, tell you what, I've never had such a complimentary intro. It's going on, this is like the opposite of Stretford Barrett.
Hey, you've
Hey?
no,
People
you're not
usually
the
saying,
opposite.
what do I've got to do a video with him for? And it's
You give us credit. You give us credit when we come on, so it's only right we do. I do, Right, let's just dive straight into it, Jay. Harry Kane. Shreyas, do you want to kick things off with that? Let's talk about Harry Kane.
Yeah, surely. So, Jay, according to you, what is the most realistic course of events which will follow this Kane saga now? Because there is one hand of, where he can move to Bayern because Tottenham have accepted the offer, or, he chooses to stay at Spurs and wants, just break that Premier League goal scoring record. So, according to you, what's the most realistic turn of events that could come out of this?
The latest, it sort of changes day by day, but the latest noises seem to indicate that he does want to stay at Spurs, at least for the time being. Bayern Munich came in with this offer, and it was a bit of sort of brinkmanship, and they made an offer. Spurs said no, we need more, we need this, it needs to match a certain target. So Bayern Munich eventually come back in and match the target that Spurs wanted. Spurs accept it, and it's down to the player. And Harry Kane is now, from what I gather, and again this could change, hour by hour. He's saying now he doesn't want the move. Now that bears two questions. Does that mean he wants to stay at Spurs for the season because he's got 1 year left on his contract? Does he want to see his contracts out? Or is he hoping for a move elsewhere? Now, I don't know the answer to those two questions because he might decide, well, if I stay at Spurs 1 more year and then I'm a free agent at the end of my contract, I can get big money and go somewhere else, and there'll be a lot of clubs that are in for me. Yes, I'll be 31, but I'm still going to be one of the top strikers in the world. Or he might be holding out for a club coming in from closer to home. And that's where you look at, is it going to be Manchester United? Now, if you look at the options of clubs he could go to, certainly in England, if he was going to stay in the Premier League and try and break Alan Shearer's Premier League record, look at the top clubs that could potentially get him. There's maybe Newcastle. Could they come in for him? Maybe. They've got money. Would he go to Newcastle? Is that a bigger club than Spurs? I know they've got a bigger ground. No, I don't even think they've got a big ground. Is that a step up? I know the Newcastle are obviously in the Champions League and Spurs aren't. Yeah. It's a questionable one though, and it's not. You wouldn't feel like a massive step up there. Arsenal obviously a no-go. He's never going to go to Arsenal. Spurs will never sell him, so Arsenal, I don't think Arsenal will be in for him. City have got Haaland, they're not going to go in for him. Liverpool, I think, are pretty set with their attack. I don't see them spending 100 million on Harry Kane. Chelsea, I think there is a real Chelsea-Spurs rivalry. I think Chelsea probably have him, but I don't see Spurs selling him to Chelsea because of the rivalry there. So that leaves United. Now, the question is, could United afford him? Because he's going to be 100 million quid. United, from what we gather, are trying to raise the funds for Sofian Amrabat for 50 million. So if you're trying to raise funds for 50 million for Sofian Amrabat, have you got the money for Harry Kane, especially with FFP? You just don't know, do you? Because the thing for me is, if the club got noises that Harry Kane was up to coming to Old Trafford, I think there could be a way of finding that money. I think there could. I think you could just go, well, for getting Harry Kane, it's worth doing some sort of madness and maybe selling a player you weren't going to sell, or maybe, I don't know, just dipping into next season's transfer budget or whatever way you can find a way around it to do that. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. If I was a betting man, and I'm not, I think he probably ends up staying at Spurs. I think he does. And I think I kind of get it, right? I've been thinking about the Bayern Munich thing all day. Because at first, when Bayern Munich came in for him, I was like, he's got to go to Bayern. He's got to get that trophy. He's guaranteed a trophy. And the more I think about it, that's more the problem. You guaranteed a trophy there because it's so easy to win a title when you play for Bayern Munich. They've won 11 Bundesliga titles, I think, on the spin. There's no challenge there. There's no achievement almost.
The tweet you put out, Jay, about that as well. The elusive title.
Yeah, it's like, if he manages to get that elusive title, you can't question his ambition or his talent. I'm not having a dig at him. I get it, because it's like, I've not won anything, but does anyone massively care if he's won the Bundesliga at Bayern Munich? Are people going to go, oh, well, tell you what, you can knock Harry Kane all you want for his lack of trophies, but he did win that Bundesliga at Bayern? No. That's, to paraphrase to quote one of my friends, might as well be Celtic. It's just, you go in there and basically getting given a title.
Yeah.
Because I know Bayern Munich only just won it last season on the final day, but that felt like an outlier. That felt like the one chance Dortmund had. Dortmund since then have obviously lost Jude Bellingham as well. So I think if he stays at Spurs, works towards breaking Alan Shearer's record, that might be a bigger achievement than just going to Germany and getting gifted a title, because let's face facts, Bayern Munich always win the Bundesliga. They've not won it since 2013, I think, or 2012. So it's not really an achievement, that.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise building around it, so we'd love to hear everybody's thoughts in the chat. Please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Just in the bottom corner as well is our FPL code. So if you want to join that, the deadline is tomorrow. Get in there. It's JM. I always get this fucked up. J5AMSC. So make sure you join that league and become part, and get yourself a chance to win a retro jersey. Deadlines tomorrow. Get it done. Yeah, just sticking with the strikers. I know you've been speaking about Kane quite a lot, so I wanted to go for something a little bit different. Bit of a vintage question, if you will, Jay. If you could bring any striker now, because I know you're a fan of two strikers this season, back in from any era, who would you bring in for this season?
So I can bring any striker into this season for United?
From United, from United's team, like whenever.
Years ago.
Whenever, yeah.
Two of my favourite strikers I've played for United there's three. There's Eric, there's Rude, and there's Andy Cole. I think,
who would fit the system best, do you think?
It's a good question, that. You can even throw Rooney into that mix, couldn't you? But I do feel like we could do with someone who's just a bit of a poacher in and around the box. So either Rude or Andy Cole. I'd probably plump for Rude, because I love Andy Cole, but I think Rude, as a pure striker, a goal getter, he was the best I've ever seen. He was just about getting goals. He wasn't interested in anything else. He wasn't there to assist or to create things for his teammates or to hold up the ball. He was there to get you goals, get in that box, get you goals. And I think if you put him in this team, I think he'd get goals. I think you'd have to tweak it slightly, because a lot of our wingers are inverted wingers who like to shoot and try and get the shot off. And I think there'd have to be a bit more, you're going to have to play Rude in. But I think we could do that. And I think maybe you get the best out of the likes of Garnacho and Jadon Sancho, and maybe even Facundo Palestra and players like that. So, yeah, I'd probably go for Rude, but any of the strikers I mentioned there could do a job in any team, including this one, because this team's got some good creative players as well. If you put Andy Cole in front of Bruno Fernandes, Andy Cole's going to get you 25, 30 goals a season. Easy.
Yeah, it's a hard decision, isn't it, to be fair. From one Harry to the next Harry, we want to discuss Mr. Maguire as well. Shreyas, what did you want to ask?
Yeah. Do you think that Maguire was actually part of a different issue at Manchester United, that the player wasn't necessarily bad, but he was put in a difficult system and under a difficult manager to where he can actually show his game the best?
That's again a very good question. I think we have to be honest there and say it's not just about the system. I think Harry Maguire suited the system when he first arrived a lot better, a bit more counter-attacking, bit deeper. He seemed to like that, and there was fewer issues. But it's not just about the system here. The system doesn't force you to make errors, and there was some errors in his game that sort of started creeping in. He just didn't look comfortable. He didn't look confident, and maybe you say those two things are connected. But I do feel like with Harry Maguire, he had a couple of bad games, a couple of dodgy ones. He lost his place. Obviously, Martinez coming in was massive, because that was the manager saying, this is my first choice left-sided centre-back. And Rafael Varane, who's one of the best centre-backs in the world, in my opinion, is the right-sided one. That's got to knock your confidence. You're no longer the starter, despite the fact you're captain of Manchester United. Then you get the idea that Luke Shaw is better than you at being a centre-back, which was like, Luke Shaw was never a centre-back, yet he leapfrogged Harry Maguire. And that's got to affect your confidence. So I think all these things that were knocking at his confidence, a player that already was suffering from a bit of an issue when it came to his belief in his own ability, it just almost destroyed him. And until the point where his performances weren't that bad. but the reaction they got made him feel worse because he was always getting spoken about. He was always getting talked about. People, we saw what happened. We saw it last year in Perth. I was there when he got booed. Then this season in Houston and in Vegas for I think it was the Real Madrid and Dortmund games, he got booed again. We saw a little bit of it as well when he played in Dublin. It's not nice to see any United player getting booed, but especially one who's going through it and, he's trying to do his best. He's just his best when good enough. So I think it was more a case of Harry Maguire's form and confidence just deserted him at a time when he needed it. Not necessarily the system was the problem.
Yeah. I never understood fans booing players, to be honest with you. It just never ever made sense. And that's kind of segued perfectly into my next question, which is, do you think the perspective of the players need to be spoken about a bit more when it comes to transfers? Because fans online in Twitter and social media areas and stuff like this, they're like absolute fucking wild animals, can't they, at times when it comes to that? Do you think that needs to be thought about a bit more?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry, the fans, what? Fans on social media?
So yeah, the perspective of the player needs to be spoken about a little bit more, because when it comes to Maguire, everyone's just like, fucking sell him, fucking do this, fucking do that. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's somewhere in the middle ground. Because, listen, got to remember, these players are getting paid a lot of money.
Of course.
To play for Manchester United, and they cost the club a lot of money. And we've seen the performances they can put in. So don't think everyone gets a free pass. I've been on a podcast millions of times where I've said, that player didn't play well. I don't make it personal. And I certainly, like you say, I won't boo him, I won't troll him, I wouldn't, come out of outrageous statements. I wouldn't question, things about him other than his performance. So I do think when you play for Manchester United, you should be able to get criticism. Yeah. I think that goes with the territory. You're playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. And if you don't put in the performances that you should, then people and the fans have a right to question that. I think he just needs to not cross lines. When you start trolling and having digs about them personally and bringing the family into it, or bringing threats into it, or bringing race into it, or some of the things we've seen over the last few years, especially, or booing them at the ground or whatever, or confronting them. We've seen a little bit of that, haven't we? Players getting confronted in the car park.
Yeah.
I think that's crossing a line. I do. I don't think anyone deserves that, whether they play for Manchester United or anyone else. So, yeah, maybe a little bit of remembering these are human beings, but also the flip side to that is these are human beings. They've got to remember they play for Manchester United. So if they don't put in performances, they're going to get criticised. And I ain't got a problem with that. I just don't think the criticism needs to be personal and abusive.
Yeah, agreed. Dan Raj put in a super chat saying selling Kovar's put us in a difficult goalkeeper situation. We'll try to touch on that towards the end. If you have any questions for Jay, again, leave them in and we will get into them if we can. Shreyas, you wanted to ask about the upcoming season, didn't you?
Yeah, this is a question that has actually been bugging me for quite some time. So last season, our home form was incredibly good in comparison to our away form. And whenever we went away, we saw that, that our team was a little less effective in comparison to when we played at Old Trafford. So what do you think is the reason for it, that the same set of players are just not able to pull off the same amount of intensive play that they perform at Old Trafford?
It's a really good question. It's a very difficult one, because if you look at a team that can win against Liverpool at home and lose 7-0 away with more or less the same team, I've never seen anything like it. A team that can win at home and then lose to City and then lose 6-3 away.
Yep.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, how did that happen? It's just you're just proper baffled by it. I've never, ever in my 40 years of watching football seen anything like it. I've seen teams, where we've struggled home and away with them, or teams where we beat them at home and lost away, but not that to that nature, where you're a better team at home and you're getting absolutely battered away from home. I think a big thing that's happened away is heads dropping after that first goal. City scored the first goal at Old Trafford and we won the game.
Yeah.
We came back from that, not an issue. City scored the first goal at the Etihad, and then before you know it, you're wondering whether it's going to be 10-0. I remember at half time thinking, this could be 10-0, it's genuinely, because I think it was 4 or 5-0 at half time. And they just battered us. And I was relieved it was only 6-3, and I never thought I'd say that about Manchester Derby. I think there's this sort of, maybe it's a bit of a psychological thing, maybe it's an organisational thing, maybe it's just the players themselves who, don't know, maybe there's one or two who need to step up a little bit more in those scenarios and use that experience we've got. But one goal goes in and all of a sudden the wheels are coming off, and it's I mean, I don't like to make excuses because I don't think you can. But I think there was a slight thing in the game at Anfield where it was one of those freaky games where everything Liverpool hit went in. Like it just did. Like
Well,
I think we had
eight shots, eight on target.
8 shots on target and 7 went in.
Yeah,
and 7 went
like
in.
there was a game we had not long after that where we won the game and they had a better XG than Liverpool. I can't remember. It was Old Trafford.
Yeah.
Can't remember who it was against. It was.
I think it was Brentford. I think it was
right. Brentford or something like Brentford had a lot of shots.
Yeah.
Had 8 shots. I can't remember what the score was. I was at the game. I can't remember, but 8 saves or whatever, and we won 1-0 or whatever. Whereas at Anfield, they had 8 shots and scored 7 goals. Very, very rarely get that. It was one of those where everything was going in for him. And Klopp himself said it.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not, because Liverpool fans started to get giddy. We're going to get top 4 now. And he's like, slow down. This is a freak result. This doesn't mean that United are done and we're flying because, we went obviously on to win, finished 3rd and they finished outside the top 4. So there was an element of freakness by it. But I think a big thing was when we went a goal behind away from home, we didn't react in the right way. When we went a goal behind or we were up against it at Old Trafford, the crowd were with us, the players reacted to that, and were able to build on it. And I think you just got to sort of work on that and work on that mentality and that sort of, I don't know, maybe the psychology of it with the players if you're Erik ten Hag, because you cannot afford to have that again this season. We can't go to Anfield and lose by 7 goals.
Yeah.
We can't concede 6 against City, the Etihad. We can't get battered 4-0 at Brentford. Just can't do it, man. You can't have those games. It's like... That's when I love Erik ten Hag. He's an amazing manager. That's when people go, "What is wrong with the guy? Why does this keep happening?"
Damaging, isn't it? It's very, very damaging.
It is. Yeah. And it's like that 7-0 is going to live us forever. They're never going to shut up about it. They didn't shut up about the 5-0. And now the only reason we've got them to shut up about the 5-0 is by them beating us 7-0.
Well, one can only hope it doesn't happen going into next season. And again, perfect segue, knocking out of the park. I wanted to do a quick fire with you. So if you're ready, no timer or anything like that, of course. But for this season, predictions, just top 4, top scorer, relegation, first manager to be sacked. Go.
Top 4, I'll go Liverpool, United, Chelsea, City. Relegation, this is what I did on the Paddock podcast. I'm going to stay consistent. Bottom 3, I'll go with Luton, Wolves, Sheffield United. What was the other one? Sorry.
First manager to be sacked and top scorer.
First manager to be sacked. I know he's only just took over, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Gary O'Neill.
Poor Gary.
Yeah. And sorry, I keep asking you the same questions. What is it?
Top scorer.
Top scorer.
Yeah.
It's more than likely going to be that cyborg, innit? I mean, like, let's have it right. Unless he malfunctions, unless he forgets to change his batteries or whatever.
Yeah.
He's just going to end up scoring about 40 odd goals again or whatever it was. I don't even know what he ended up with last season. But I don't see him, tailing off. I'd love to sit here and say it's going to be Marcus or Højlund or whatever, but it's going to be Haaland, isn't it? Yeah. I think you've got to be honest.
Højlund 30 plus. That's what I heard. That's what's on the street.
Right, listen, I'd say that all day long. If Højlund gets 30 goals next season, then we're laughing.
Yeah, absolutely. That €70 million spent will look like an absolute small dime. Right, let's dive into some questions then. There's a lot of in the chat. Someone had a really good question before asking about Jadon Sancho. Do you think it's do or die for him this season, Jay?
It's a very good question, because it's difficult with Jadon Sancho because he's had a chance now with Erik ten Hag, where Erik ten Hag said to him, like, go away and get yourself sorted when he had issues, which, it's fine. It can happen to anyone. I think Erik ten Hag did the right thing. He came back though, and he's not really smashed it. He's done okay, but he's still got issues around his consistency. He's had an okay preseason, a good game against Arsenal, scored a goal. Other games, he's looked a little bit off the pace. He has to perform. He has to perform early. He has to. I don't think you can go into like January asking whether Jadon Sancho's any good or not.
Yeah,
I think the manager's going to go, look, I'll give you a season and a half now. I've let you go away and get sorted, and I'm still scratching my head waiting for that player we had or you saw at Dortmund. So I still think there's a player in Jadon Sancho, but we need to see it by January.
If we got offered 50, 60 million right now, would you take it?
If we got offered 50, 60 million, personally, I would. And I hope he makes me eat my words. I hope this gets clipped up when he's banged in his 30th goal of the season later.
Yeah. Agreed. He was actually, when we did our predictions last season, I put him as like one of the top goal scorers and like an absolute fucking idiot now, but that's what predictions are for, I suppose.
Exactly.
Shreyas, did you want to ask about Fred? Because there was some breaking news, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Recently, we literally went live just before this show, so yeah.
Yeah, Fred has not moved to Fenerbahce, so it means I think it was that United were waiting for Fred's outgoing to actually get Amrabat in. So, do you think that this is like transfer window shut down for United when it comes to midfielders or attackers, or do you think there is still something left in the gas? Because me and Nick have been, we have that strong feeling that maybe there is one marquee signing still coming through till the end of this window. But do you believe that there could be one big signing coming through in that midfield or attacking department?
I mean, yeah, you mentioned Amrabat being the obvious one that we're interested in, and everyone's sort of making noises that Ten Hag really wants him. He's worked with Ten Hag obviously at Utrecht, had a very good World Cup. I know he shouldn't buy players based on a World Cup, but he's had a decent spell for Fiorentina. Certainly fits the mold as well. And Erik Ten Hag, usually, not always, because the old Frankie de Jong one, but he usually gets his man done if he's earmarked someone. He's not that. I mean, there has been a couple like Timber and de Jong, like I mentioned, but there's been a lot where he's gone, right, I want him, and he's ended up with him.
Yeah.
And if we get rid of certain players, I think if Fred and McTominay go, and you brought in Amrabat and you could use Kobbie Mainoo, I think that is an improvement, and I think that would work. I'm a big fan of Kobbie Mainoo. I know he's injured at the minute. But I think the one big signing, even though I'd love to say it's going to be Harry Kane, I know you talked about midfielders, not strikers. I think it is likely to be Amrabat. And then I don't know if we're going to do anything else. Maybe we're getting a Benjamin Pavard in defence. But I'll be very, very surprised if we brought in more than, say, Amrabat.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think maybe Amrabat and Pavard. Anything more than that would be a shock.
Yeah. Adam saying less than 20 subs away from 3K. Please subscribe if you're new in these parts. Yes, please do subscribe and leave a like on the video for us. Dean Lewis got a very good question here, and then we'll wrap it up shortly. He says, what do you think of Roy Keane being in the new third kit video?
I'm not that bothered. I mean, people want, the players and ex-players to call the Glazers, and Roy Keane has done that, and it's a bit disappointing when you see him sort of doing all the flogging the merchandise and what have you. But it saddens me that the big thing about Roy Keane is this Fergie feud they've got. Yeah. I wish they just patch things up, because it's the greatest ever manager and the greatest ever captain, in my opinion. Well, certainly up there with Brian Robson. And this fallout. And I think there's the Roy Keane thing. And, people have got angry about it, and I get it, because he was someone that had spoken up in support of the fans and the Glazer protests and stuff. So when you see him flogging merch, it does leave a bit of sour taste in the mouth. But I think you got to remember, a lot of the ex-players do stuff with the clubs, players that I love. Brian Robson's one of my heroes, and he's an ambassador for the club. So is Wes Brown. So it's not like, Roy Keane's the first ones to work with the club. It's just the nature of the beast at the minute, innit, for a lot of ex-players. So it's not quite angered me as the way as other fans. And I get why they're angry. But for me, I'm not that fussed. I just, like I say, if Roy Keane was to do anything with the club, I just wish he'd do it alongside Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. Brian Casey, who's been a member for 3 months, says, Jay, who you got for United Player of the Year? By the way, if you want to become a member, click the join button next to the notification bell for exclusive content about next to your name and a chance to feature on the show live with us as well. But yeah, Jay, who you got for United Player of the Year?
I'll go Martinez. I think Martinez, if he stays fit, I think he's fans' favourite. Organises the defence, does really well. I thought his first season was fantastic. Really was. Yeah. It's so annoying he got injured.
Yeah.
So annoying. I think if he don't get injured, we have there's a good chance we win that FA Cup final. I really do. I think he's that important to us.
Yeah.
He's as important a player to United as anyone else.
Absolutely.
Like there's no one else that's more important than him. He's equal with the likes of Marcus and Casemiro. So it was really, really devastating to lose him for like those last couple of months of the season. And he doesn't usually get injured. It's quite rare for him. But I think if he carries on playing the way he was playing up until that injury this season, if he sees out the season, sees out any finals we get to, then, for me, he's a very, very good contender for Player of the Season.
Yeah, I've always described him as a captain without the armband. Like I absolutely love him.
Yeah, I
Everything
think
about
that's
he's
a
like
fair comment.
the perfect combination of a fan, a die-hard fan, and a world-class player, like kind of blended together. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of him. Yeah, we can leave it there. Thank you very much for coming on, Jay. I know you're a very busy man. So
No, listen, lads. You know, normally I come on here for an hour and stuff, and
yeah.
I hate to have to shoot. I'm still at the studio and I've got to go get home, but I will come on again. I'm away next week, and then I'll come on a week after, and we'll do a longer one. We'll come on for longer because it's always a pleasure, and keep up the good work.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jay. Thank you very much, Shreyas, as well, alongside me, and to the wonderful people in the chat. If you haven't liked the video already yet, please do subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys in the next one. Peace.